In this video, we're going to talk about some finishing touches I added to our theme. If you remember back in our first module when we were talking about our plan for our site, I mentioned that I wanted to create 2 custom page designs and then 2 page templates for our theme. And so we've created our home page, we've created our classes page, and we've also created those 2 template pages, full width and our 2 column template, which we finished in our last video. So our theme is pretty much finished, and the rest of it is pretty much adding content and fleshing out the rest. So I'm going to switch back to our theme and show you some changes I made. One thing I did was I added some responsive styles. So if I shrink the browser window here, you can kind of see we just have a basic responsive layout here. And then I also added some content so we could kind of take a look at how our site might have turned out if this were going to be a real website. So one thing I did is I went to our widgets page and I used our widget, and I added a text widget for our sidebar. It just has a title and some content. And if you want to paste that in, I included a content.txt file with your course file, so you can go ahead and just copy and paste it from there if you want. And I came to our About page and I selected that 2-column layout or 2-column template from our page properties, and I applied it, and so we can see that our 2-column layout is going to look pretty nice. One other thing I did was I went ahead and I added an events plugin for my events calendar. If you remember in our first lesson, I mentioned that I wanted to use this plugin. I'd already done some research on it, and I thought it would look pretty nice and work nicely with what I needed. So their CSS isn't super specific, which I like because it's letting our styles come through, and it looks like it goes pretty nicely with our theme. So we'd want to add some things to our calendar and test that and see if there's any other styles that we'd want to customize to make sure that this fits in with our custom theme and it doesn't immediately stick out that it's a plugin. So I would do that if I were finalizing this. And one other thing I did was on our classes page, I'm going to come here. You can see it might look a little bit different than it did last time because before this was using just our static page template, which is completely fine. We just had all of the HTML in there. But if we want to think about things like maintenance and who's going to be using our theme, if we were to pass that off on a client, it's probably going to be incredibly difficult for them to edit the template file. So one thing we can do is we can use a custom post type to manage these type of features. So let's go ahead and take a look. I'm coming to my dashboard. And a custom post type, we have posts and we have pages, which are the 2 types of content we can add to a WordPress site by default. And adding a custom post type gives us additional options for adding content to our site. So I defined a custom post type called classes. And if we take a look, you can see each one of our courses on that page or our classes on that page is going to be a post in our custom post type. And if I edit one of these individual posts, then you can see we have a meta box with custom fields, and this allows us to enter all of those repeatable fields from our courses. So basically we're templating this out, and it allows us to fill out that basic information about our course. We could even choose a different theme for our course box. And then we can update it, and it's going to automatically add it to our course page, which is really, really cool. And you can see how this could be a lot easier for a client or someone to maintain than having to dive into that template file. So I'm going to come into our functions.php and just show you briefly how I did that. We aren't going to go through this step by step because it would take an entire course on its own to do it justice. So I'm just going to show you briefly the steps I took to add this functionality. So in my functions.php file, I added a function that is going to register this as a new post type, and so we add some basic information like we can give it a name. And then we will register our meta boxes on that screen. So we'll tell it exactly what fields we want to expect. So we have like our class name, our instructor, that thumbnail URL, so we can add their picture, the skill level, the length, all kinds of things. And then next, we actually add those meta boxes to the screen. So we're formatting this as a table, so that's why it looks the way it does. And then our last step here is we're saving the data from the meta box. So whatever the user enters, it's going to save that, and then we can use that information on our template. So rather than having static HTML in here, I've created a WordPress loop, and it's looping through those meta boxes and pulling out whatever information is in each post that we added to our classes type. And then below here, we're just pulling out specific information and adding it to our HTML template. So for example, here, the heading, it's just going to echo out the class name. Or if we went down here to the skill level, it's just going to echo out the class skill level. For the length, it's going to get whatever value we added to that length, and so on and so forth. So you can see that although we can have a simple theme, and there's nothing wrong with that, we can always be coming in and improving our theme and thinking of ways we can enhance it for the future. And that's what we're going to talk about in our next module when we talk about beyond our theme and thinking about some things like adding additional plugins to make our life easier, and also other things like security.